Educational Society, for allowing Infinite Erie and myself to be here today to talk about the past 21 months. First of all, I can't believe it's been 21 months that we've actually been working on implementing Erie's Investment Playbook. But again, good afternoon. I am Kim Thomas. I'm the director of Infinite Erie. Very pleased to be with you all here today. Truly right in the place where this entire conversation started several years ago, in fact, with Bruce Katz, a man that many of you are likely familiar with and a great friend of Erie and the Jefferson Educational Society. So Infinite Erie really is here to implement Erie's Investment Playbook. And this whole entire conversation, again, started around post-pandemic resources becoming available at the federal level, right? So we know that billions upon billions of dollars are being allocated through the federal and funneled through state governments into communities to recover from the pandemic in a number of ways. So there was a conversation, I believe, here, or at least in Erie, amongst Bruce and some leadership in Erie. There was the private sector that was involved, the public sector, Erie Insurance, a leading voice in this, the County Gaming Revenue Authority, certainly Dr. Ferrati here at the Jefferson, among many others, saying, what do we need to do to ensure that we're able to attract these dollars here to Erie? You're talking about a federal government allocating billions of dollars, quite frankly, probably don't even know how they're going to do it. What do we need to do here at this local level to ensure that we are accessing these funds to the best of our abilities? So Bruce said, you need to organize, right? Okay, so Erie needs to organize. You have a plethora, and this probably isn't even all of them, right? You have a number of strategic plans that have been created in Erie over the years. You have those strategies in place. Now you need to identify what are going to be the transformational investment opportunities that come out of all of these strategies that you've been working so diligently to put together over the years. So in order to organize this work, Bruce and his colleague at New Localism Associates, Florian Shalial, worked to design Erie's first ever investment playbook. It was actually one of the first investment playbooks in the entire nation. So what the investment playbook is a compilation of 35 transformational investment opportunities. Bruce and Florian had a number of conversations with stakeholders, approximately 50 or so stakeholders throughout the community, to really identify what are the projects that are moving throughout Erie? What are the challenges that you're facing? What do you truly believe that if you're able to implement and secure resources for implementation, that will really move the needle on growth for Erie County as a whole? I want to emphasize that this, compared to the previous slide, is not another plan, right? So we want to ensure that, as opposed to creating yet another plan, that we're instead helping to put those plans into action. So what exactly is an investment playbook? So again, as Bruce and Florian and their colleagues designed this mechanism for identifying those transformational investment opportunities, they identify that investment playbooks are focusing on specific types of investments. We recognize at Infinite Erie and as a community that there are a number of different challenges and needs and projects that require implementation in a number of different focus areas, right? So this is really identifying projects that, one, they're going to contribute to that equitable, sustainable economic growth in our community. They are near investment ready, right? And in many cases, actually, we're finding that some of these projects aren't as close to investment ready as we might have originally thought. And finally, and perhaps most challenging in some regards, they require considerable innovation, complex design, and cross-sector collaboration. And I would say that cross-sector collaboration, the bringing together the leaders of the public, private, and philanthropic sectors is really at the heart of everything that we're doing. These projects cannot be executed by one of these sectors alone. They really need the strength of all of the sectors coming together, identifying them as transformational projects, that they're catalytic to moving the needle in a number of different areas, and that they're willing to put their strength behind these projects in the forms of investment and other ways to really move them forward to implementation. And this is a snapshot of our Erie Action Team. We say that the Erie Action Team is that cross-sector collaborative, public, private, civic sectors that are coming together to really empower the work of implementing Erie's investment playbook, empowering the work of Infinite Erie. You'll see that we have incredibly strong partners, many of which are represented here today, and we certainly thank you all for being here. But it's a grand opportunity to get these public, private, and philanthropic leaders into the room together to have a great understanding of what these projects are, what the needs of these projects are in order to continue progressing, and to help empower the work to ensure that they're able to reach implementation and ultimately becoming a reality. So what exactly are we doing? Which is probably a question that many of you have asked over the past 21 plus months. Well, I will say that we've spent a majority of that time working to identify our framework and what our levers of impact are going to be in this community. What is Infinite Erie's space in this community and economic development ecosystem? So one of the ways that we feel that we can have an impact on the work that's being done is to activate our project portfolios. You see the 4 portfolios listed here. They're industry clusters and infrastructure, inclusive entrepreneurship, neighborhoods and main streets, and anchor investments in the greater core. So we have taken many of the projects that are among the 35 projects in Erie's investment playbook, and we've placed them into one of these areas of focus in these portfolios. And secondly, and quite frankly, probably most importantly in terms of the work that we're doing, is to boost the capacity of the organizations that are working to implement the projects identified in Erie's investment playbook. So in doing this work, here's what we're hoping to achieve, right? We're hoping to, again, build the capacity of these organizations. So years down the road, once we work with these organizations, that we're able to help build their capacity, provide some assistance in the framework where they might be perhaps lacking in a specific subject matter expertise. But at the end of the day, this should help these projects in our community secure significantly more outside dollars, both in the public sector and from philanthropy, that there will be coordinated, collaborative, local match committed to these projects. And that is very important. So we want to ensure by bringing all of these partners together, specifically the funders, that they're able to identify and understand and agree on the collective transformational nature of these projects, and that they are committed to working with one another and ensuring that resources are going into these projects to reach implementation. We want to ensure that projects are advancing to an investment-ready state. We'll go through the different stages of the project development process here in just a moment, but in order for a project to be able to secure resources, it has to be investment-ready, right? You can't just have an idea. We all have many, many ideas, and I'm sure many of them would result in impactful projects. But you have to go through a number of steps in order to be competitive for resources, not only at the local level, but even more specifically, the competitive nature of the public funding resources that are available to be had. And finally, we want to reduce the investment disparities that we oftentimes see in many communities, but that we still do see here in the Erie community. We want to ensure that we're leveling the playing field for organizations and project leads that are really doing some phenomenal work in some really hard-hit areas of this community. We want to ensure that areas that have been historically disinvested in are now seeing their fair share of investment into their projects. So that's what we want to do. This is how we do it. So in terms of an outcome of securing resources, we are activating these project portfolios and really, again, trying to build the capacity to ensure that these projects are able to come to fruition. Within each of these portfolios, we have a series of projects that, again, we believe and have worked to identify with community leaders that are intended to be impactful to this community. Each of these portfolios have come together on a regular basis, and they have had a collective discussion, and plans have been reviewed again, to identify some proposed project outcomes that we want to see coming out of these, again, as a collective from these portfolios. I know that this is a little difficult to see, but for example, in the Neighborhoods and Main Streets portfolio, we want to ensure that the projects that we're focusing on there are raising the rate of owner-occupied housing, they're increasing residential property conditions, supporting access to healthy and affordable foods, and addressing and reducing chronic homelessness. For the anchor investments in the greater core, some of the proposed outcomes include increasing the total usable square footage of our properties, raising property conditions, very importantly, encouraging private sector follow-on investment via the public investment activity, and finally, raising the combined occupancy rate. So I mentioned earlier about the project development process. In order to achieve the work that we're doing in terms of the capacity building and attracting the technical assistance to the various project leads, in order to put these plans into action, we're helping to support the projects through every stage of this project development pipeline. And the first stage, and some that are still in this stage, however many have progressed beyond this, is discovery and problem solving. So we're convening the practitioners who are working within the space of each of these portfolios to develop really strategies of excellence. We've heard from leadership, we're tired of mediocre, right? We need to be striving for excellence solutions to solve these complex problems. So the practitioners who work in these spaces day in and day out, who truly are the boots on the ground, the experts of the work that they're doing, the touch points for the people that they're serving, they are coming together in a collaborative manner, discussing their similar challenges and identifying ways to overcome those challenges and to truly implement their work. And I would say one example of how we've seen that progress over the past year or so is one of our early discussions when we previously called these portfolios delivery teams, and we had our Neighborhoods and Main Streets team come together, and there was this understanding that, sure, we can grab millions and millions and millions of dollars in resources for home repairs and rehabilitation efforts. We do not and cannot find the construction workers and the contractors to actually do that work. So there was a challenge that they were all facing, our neighborhood groups, our redevelopment authorities, and the like. And so as a result of that, it was identified that we have a construction trades training program in Erie that's run by ECAT out of Erie High School. What if we take that program and expand it to provide on-the-job training? So that on-the-job training will not only help build the skills and as well as the wealth of these individuals participating in the training, because they will be paid an hourly rate for the work that they're doing, but it will allow us to continue to progress the repair work that we need to happen on these homes. So there was an example of a project that came out as a result of the discovery and problem solving phase. I talk about the practitioners and the people who are doing this work day in and day out, and those that we have worked with, and it's this and then some, right? So many of you are represented here today and have been doing phenomenal work, and this is what it's all about. It's about the collaboration. It's knowing and understanding that we're all facing similar challenges in trying to do the great work that you're doing, right? So how do we collectively overcome those challenges? So we're incredibly grateful for our project partners and all of the phenomenal, impactful work that they're doing, and are really excited about seeing the continued progress of their work day in and day out. So once the project is identified, this becomes a critical step to getting to that investment ready stage that we talked about, right? So the project development stage. This is where Infinite Erie is able to, where needed, step in and provide some project development technical assistance. I think when we recognize that when we talk about decreasing the investment disparities, one of the main reasons that oftentimes a project doesn't reach its finish line is perhaps because the capacity or the subject matter expertise, that technical support isn't always there. A lot of the organizations that are trying to do this really great work are 1-2 person, very small nonprofit organizations that, again, they have a clientele that they serve and they're doing phenomenal work, but they have this, they're stepping into the development space and in order to continue the work that they're doing. And they just might need that little bit of extra subject matter expertise to step in and help ensure that they keep this project moving along. So very proud to say, and we talk about the past 21 months of work plus, that in order to do this work, Infinite Erie, in partnership with the Erie County Redevelopment Authority, Erie's Black Wall Street, PennTap, and the Erie Community Foundation, was recently, toward the end of last year, awarded a $1+ million ARC Power Grant through the Appalachian Regional Commission. And we are using those resources specifically to, again, leverage local resources, but to provide that capacity building and that technical assistance. This resource is allowing us to engage with those subject matter experts to ensure that when a project lead says, here's where our gap is, here's where we need some help, that we're immediately able to plug in someone who can help them overcome that hurdle. In terms of partnerships and collaboration, we've also, I mentioned that we've teamed up with PennTap to create our sustainability advisory team. Infinite Erie, we say that we coordinate inclusive growth strategies. We want to ensure that we actually are coordinating inclusive growth strategies, and we're being very intentional about that work. So as we are having these project discussions, we are ensuring that these subject matter experts specifically have a seat at the table with the project owners and are able to, one, help identify opportunities for perhaps making their project more inclusive, more sustainable, and two, that they are able to help these project leads identify resources to help them actually do that work as well. The third stage of the project development pipeline is securing that investment. So once you have a project that has a blueprint, it has outcomes identified, it has some of the pre-development work already behind them, then Infinite Erie is able to step in, again, with some of our capacity building and help to identify potential funding resources for these projects. And that can be at all levels, certainly. We want to, again, ensure that at the local level that funders are coordinating and collaborating with one another. So at our action team meetings and at other meetings, we're having conversations directly with the project leads to identify where they are in this stage, if they are investment ready, even if they're not. What do you need to ensure that your project continues down this road toward implementation? That could be on the front end. They may need $15,000 for a feasibility study. That's where the Erie Action Team is intended to come in and, again, coordinate to empower the work that they're doing. We do have an example of that with the Burton School Revitalization Project. Again, we have this conversation, and we want to ensure that that project continues down a path toward implementation to say, okay, we need $15,000 for a feasibility study. And we had Hammett Health Foundation, the Erie County Gaming Revenue Authority, and the Erie Community Foundation step up and provide those resources, again, to ensure that that project keeps moving forward. And finally, at the end of the day, we certainly want to join our partners in celebrating their success, but just as importantly, measuring the actual impact and outcomes of those projects to the proposed outcomes that have been identified by these practitioners and by community leaders to say, yes, in fact, you are increasing access to affordable housing. Yes, you are, in fact, increasing home ownership rates among the Black individuals in this community. You are reducing chronic homelessness. We want to ensure that at the end of the day, that we are recognizing that these projects are truly having an impact on the community as a whole. So we've kind of gone through the how, the why, what we're doing. I just wanted to provide a few examples of some of the projects that we've been working alongside, and there are several more, as you can imagine, with 35 projects in an investment playbook. But this is just a snapshot of where some of these projects currently fall within this project development pipeline. We talked about the Burton School Revitalization Project. So that project is in the project development phase. Fortunately, that, as you all may know, the Urban Erie Community Development Corporation was able to get site control of the former Burton School, thanks to financial contributions from Erie Insurance and the Erie Housing Authority. They were able to secure that site, and now they're working on developing the plan for what that facility will be in the future. So again, Infinite Erie is standing alongside of them to, again, ensure that they have the capacity and the project management assistance that they may need, and also also to identify funding for the pre-development needs that are required to move that project forward, whether it be design, remediation. The Erie County Gaming Revenue Authority and other partners have also stepped up in terms of moving this project forward. Grow Erie is another example of a project that's identified in Erie's Investment Playbook. And this project currently is in the securing investment phase as well as implementation. And you'll recognize that oftentimes there are certain phases of a project that are able to be implemented while subsequent phases are still seeking resources to continue that work. This was a situation where in order to get to the groundbreaking, they did have a gap, and the Erie Community Foundation really stepped up to provide that gap assistance to get this project moving forward. Currently, this project still does have a pretty significant gap once they went out to bids for the technology that's needed for the aquaponics and hydroponics facility that they're looking to do. So we are currently working with our partners in the funding stratosphere to hopefully identify some additional funding opportunities that they can go after and secure to complete the work that they're doing there. Ironworks Square, which is the former EMI building on West 12th Street, is again a situation where there are a couple of different phases. They are implementing in terms of, you saw the demo work that happened there, and now they're currently finalizing, securing their investment, their capital stack for the next phase of the revitalization of that building. So in this space where they have significant technical expertise and those subject matter experts really in-house, our role as Infinite Erie is to, again, help identify opportunities for funding, but in addition to that, advocating for for them to successfully secure those funding resources. And then East Side Renaissance along along Parade Street. So this is in various phases of project development. So we are working with East Side Renaissance to really hone in on what the projects are that they are pursuing from a prioritization standpoint along Parade Street, and to help them, again, from a technical assistance standpoint, identify what they need in order to get those projects through to implementation and to be competitive for resources, not only at the local level, but certainly at the state and federal levels as well. The Permanent Supportive Housing Project is really a true testament to the collaborative nature of the work of Infinite Erie and Erie's Investment Playbook. Here you have what, if he was here, Boo Haggerty would call the coalition of the willing really coming together. It's a combination of community leaders, social service providers, and others who are really working together to combat the chronic homelessness crisis, really, that's happening throughout our community. And I would say that this group of individuals here and others have been working diligently to move a couple of projects forward, one around a single-site permanent supportive housing single-site facility that would have, I believe, I'm going to get the number of units wrong, 30 to 50 units, in addition to a second project, which would be acquiring properties for scattered site supportive housing opportunities throughout Erie County. We're truly excited about the progress that this project has made. And when we have projects that get to that investment-ready state, we want to make sure that funders of all shapes and sizes, at all levels, have a great understanding of investment opportunities in this community. So what we have done is we have taken those investment-ready projects and others that have investment needs and put together a pitch book. This pitch book will be a resource to provide to funders that lays out the actual project description, the total project cost, the gap costs that are needed in order to get the project over the finish line. It includes the outcomes and impacts of the actual project so that a funder can clearly see all of the pieces of a project and determine whether or not that might be a project that those funders are interested in partnering on, investing in. So we're really excited about this document. We have not formally put it out in any way, shape, or form at this stage, but we do have it pretty well finalized and ready for funders to start looking at and having a good understanding of what those opportunities are here in this community. So I know that I wanted this to be more of the actual community conversation, right? So that is a very For the most part, high-level overview of the work that we are doing to implement Erie's Investment Playbook. It's all about partnership and collaboration and ensuring that projects are being brought forth at the level that they are truly investment ready. Again, we say ideas are great, but only blueprinted projects get funding. So with that, I will go ahead and sort of wrap up and really, again, want to have this conversation about the work that we're doing and questions that you may have about it. Oh, thank you.
Hi, Kim.
Hi, Liz.
It was a really great presentation.
Thank you.
I have a couple of questions. I have been involved in the Keep Our Library Public group, and as you know, there's a very big concern about, support for Project Neptune.
Sure.
Wrong location. So I wondered a couple of things. The Sustainability Action Team, is that still meeting, and are those meetings open to anyone?
So yes, the Sustainability Action Team is meeting. I do not know whether or not, I don't see why they couldn't be open, but I don't know that we've really put out there that they're open.
Is there someone who leads that?
Yes. Heidi at PennTap is leading the Sustainability Advisory Team. So yes, so that team is coming to the table to help projects, again, identify opportunities around sustainability mechanisms into their projects, as well as funding resources to support that work.
Okay, and then also in looking at the playbook, one of the things is mentioned is establishing a world-class waterfront task force.
Correct.
Is that up and running? And if so, were the members chosen for that already?
Sure. So no and no. That is not. So again, we are working to prioritize our work in terms of trying to keep the projects that are in the pipeline continually moving through that pipeline. We have not gotten to the point where we have created that world-class waterfront task force yet. I do think that it should be a priority, and I'd say that we'll likely see that move in 2024.
Okay, and then one last thing is that Bruce Katz said, obviously, there's been many strategic plans devised for Erie. So this is a comment, not a question. Blasco Library has a strategic plan. And one of the pieces of misinformation that has come out from Gannon and in media interviews is that the public computers were moved downstairs during COVID. That's wrong. It was part of the strategic plan, and it was built on input from the public, which is, I think, what you're trying to do with the investment playbook. So Correct. I just wanted to get that record straight. So the library has a strategic plan. This is not a plan, it's Correct. Implementation. So I guess I would urge whoever is looking at the creation of the Great Lakes Research and Education Center to actually look at the strategic plan for the library instead of zooming over it. So that's my comment. Thank you.
Thank you, Liz. You got one up here.
Thank you for your presentation. I have two questions. One's playful and the other is serious.
Okay.
The playful one is, where in the world did you get the word infinite for your organization?
So that's a great question. So when we had our stakeholders first convening, our Erie Action Team, that group actually sat down and had a conversation around the work that we were intending to do. And we kept coming back to the fact that Erie's Investment Playbook, one, it's ever evolving, right? There will be projects that will come out of the playbook. There will be projects that will go into the playbook. And we wanted to ensure that this is a mechanism, a model that can stand true to time, that it can last into perpetuity, so that we have the collaborative nature of this effort continuing for years and years and years to come. So we landed on infinite.
That's a word that is often related to religion.
Okay.
The serious question is, who are all these people with all this money who want to invest their money? Erie only has one locally based bank, I believe. All the other banks are local offices of out-of-town banks. Are banks the source of money, or are individuals? I mean, where's all this investment money going to come from?
Sure. So it's a great question. And I think really it's that combination. It goes back to the partnerships between the public sector, the private sector, and philanthropy, right? So we have a number of funders at the local level who are giving to projects and social impact projects in various shapes and sizes. And we want to, so that is one resource. We have significant local funders who are interested in really understanding the outcomes and the impacts of the projects that they are looking to fund, right? So that's one source. The other is the public sector. We certainly have significant, as we mentioned, that's why this was created originally, was because of the significant amount of resources specifically at the federal level, but there are a lot of public resources at the state level as well. So again, identifying transformational project, those transformational investment opportunities, and then philanthropy. We're very blessed with significant philanthropy in this community, and there are national and worldwide philanthropic organizations that are looking to invest in the growth of communities, and they're looking to invest in areas that have been disinvested in historically. So I would argue that there are significant resources out there, and we are doing our part to organize the projects to ensure that we have that pipeline of projects that can access those resources and identify what exactly those resources are. Thank you.
At the beginning, you said an idea is not enough, but I'm sure you agree with me, everything starts with ideas.
100%.
So if you did have an idea, let's say that falls in the category of inclusive entrepreneurship, where do you start? Where do you get connected into this whole process?
Sure, that's a great question. One that I will admit, are still working on answering. So as we say, the investment playbook is ever evolving, and we recognize that there will be initiatives that come forth in the future. So I think what will happen as we get through sort of this first phase of the work that we're doing is we will be providing publicly, website, and in various formats, for lack of a better term, a project intake form that will identify what that idea is, what intended impacts it has, where it falls into one of our project portfolios, if it's a project that still needs to be developed, where it is in that project development pipeline. So I will say that we have not finalized what that process looks like yet, but certainly at any point, if it's you or someone you know, you're always welcome to reach out, because you're absolutely right. It has to start with an idea. It has to start with the conversations, and that's one that we can certainly have. Thank you.
Any other questions from anyone?
Hello, thank
Hi.
you for the update. It's exciting to have been part of the conversation 2 years ago for so many of us, and then to see what is evolving. So my question is really around urgency and need of projects. So in the 21 months since this launched, Erie has seen a 25% increase in first-time homelessness, and that is an absolute first for our community and a collective crisis. So what is the role of Infinite Erie to press for urgency? And then also with, for example, the supportive housing team, are any of those folks people with lived experience with housing insecurity, with homelessness? And what can Infinite Erie do, as well as us community partners, to engage more folks with lived experience?
Oh, that's a great question. Thank you so much, and thank you for being here. So with the first question, so around the urgency piece. So yes, there is an opportunity for Infinite Erie to make that case for the dire need for resources to be invested in these types of activities to reduce homelessness, right? So specifically with that project, you'll have the leaders of that project team saying it's not moving fast enough. They certainly understand the dire nature of having a solution ready and available to support these individuals who are having these experiences. We are working, again, it's about identifying the funding resources. That project, the only reason it's currently sort of, and I won't even say it's held up because I think it is moving forward relatively quickly, is site selection, right? So they're being very diligent about identifying where exactly specifically for the single site that could be located within the city of Erie. But behind the scenes, all of that work is happening very, very quickly, probably faster, in the past year than we've seen many projects move. I would say that, they've identified a developer. I believe they have identified the supportive services provider, and really the project management team to lead this effort moving forward. In terms of the lived experience, I cannot say one way or another, yes or no. I know that there are a lot of participants from the Erie Home Team, so certainly there is the experience from the level that the agencies are working with those with that lived experience, but to say whether or not there is an actual individual sitting on that team that specifically carries that experience, I do not believe so, but I am unsure. Jim.
I was going to ask, what is your biggest challenge, and then what does your organization need the most help with in the next 21 months?
That's a phenomenal question. So I would say one of our greatest challenges is the amount of work, right? So it's a lot of work. So our greatest need is for a true prioritization of the projects, to your point, that truly need to get moving in order to alleviate some of the challenges that this community faces. This team, it's a phenomenal team. From a staffing standpoint, it's myself and Mary Treadway, who's here with us today as the project development manager. But really, we're working diligently to work within each of these portfolios, identify the projects that are going to be catalytic in nature, and really trying to move those forward. Our greatest need is, it's always for everybody. It's ensuring that the funding is available for these projects, right? Over the next 21 months, it's the collaborative nature, and again, making sure that these projects are not stalled, that they don't lose momentum, that there's always we need this, and then we're empowering them to receive that and to continue moving forward. There's so much need, quite frankly, that I don't know that I could outline it here off the top of my head. But it is, these organizations, the project leads, they're truly doing, the work of our community, and they're doing phenomenal work. But they're really trying to scale up everything that they're doing to increase that impact. And with scaling becomes a funding need, right? And because there are so many projects, we just want to really ensure that we sort of dismiss that scarcity mentality, identify the resources, get them to the projects that have been collectively determined to be impactful, and hopefully see them come to fruition and really impact the people of this community. Thanks.
Hi.
Hi.
I've been paying attention to a lot of the projects, and it seems like a lot of diverse groups are finally rowing in the right direction or the same direction. And it seems that Infinite Erie has been pretty good at calling the timing of the strokes and getting everybody going in the same way. But how do we respond when certain partners start not only rowing not in time, but go off and build their own boats? Like, how do we keep everybody hemmed in to continue rowing in that same direction? Yeah,
it's a actual realistic challenge, right? And we see it probably happen more often than we'd like to. So I think really it's leadership, right? It's recognizing that someone is starting to row off in a different direction, and having that conversation to say, listen, this has been identified, again, reminding individuals of the impacts of the specific direction that we're rowing in, and really just trying to bring those individuals back on board. But it has to be at a leadership level to say, listen, we're all rowing this direction for this reason or these reasons. You need to be sitting here with us as well.
Any other questions, comments?
Yes.
I'll be right over, Howard.
What part do our state representatives and our state senator play in this whole process?
So they're a partner in all of this. All of our elected officials we consider to be partners in this effort, right? So they are partners on the ground that are identifying the challenges and that they are, working with the project leads and supporting the projects that will help overcome these issues, right? And so we are doing our part to ensure that all of the elected officials at all levels are aware of the projects, are aware of the impacts of those projects. Again, when we talk about that three-legged stool, the public-private philanthropic partnerships here, the public sector is a critical piece to all of this, right? So we want to ensure that if we're seeing the local leaders, the funders stepping up and investing in these projects and resources, that we have partners at the state and federal level doing the same. So at the end of the day, if we can coordinate local resources around these projects, that's intended to leverage significant resources at the state and federal level. So the more that they can be aware of and familiar with the projects and part of this whole conversation, the more successful Erie will be in securing support and funding for their projects as well.
You may not want to answer this one, but are any of our elected officials rowing in the wrong direction?
So I wouldn't say necessarily in the wrong direction, perhaps a different direction to our council members' point. But that's a challenge that's not unique to Erie. It is certainly one that we are hoping to overcome in time. But certainly there are always going to be individuals or leaders who have their own sets of priorities perhaps, or have a different way of thinking about how these should be moving forward. So the short answer is yes, but the long answer, or the other side of that coin, is that it's not stopping us from continuing. We have incredible support from the majority of leadership in this community, and we're going to continue keeping that momentum going. Thank you.
Okay, anyone else? We've had some good questions, maybe a couple more before we wrap it up.
I'm going to jump in for a second question, which I really don't like doing, but if others
okay.
are not asking
We've got
questions.
time. You're good.
So myself as a development professional, of course, I'm constantly looking at various funding streams at the local, at the state level. Is it part of Infinite Erie's role, or is it on your agenda to increase the capacity of local giving? So for example, public knowledge from 990s, the Erie Community Foundation redistributes about 5% of their assets into local grants. Is it part of your mission to increase that capacity, or how can we as a community ensure that those local funders are increasing their giving capacity to meet the needs of this project?
Sure. So I do think in some ways, yes, it is the role of Infinite Erie. And again, by bringing these projects forward and being able to show the impact, I will say, to your example of the Erie Community Foundation, we're very fortunate that their board has committed significant resources to projects in the Investment Playbook, right? So they recognize the value of having these projects identified and their outcomes and impacts identified, and are specifically committing to contributing resources to those. It is our intent to bring forward these projects and to make the case for investment in our community from our local funders as well as our public funders at the state and federal level. So yes, we are here to secure and attract resources, and that includes the local level as well.
Hello.
Hi.
We're coming from the borough of Wesleyville.
Wonderful. Welcome.
So how could small municipalities like us, how do we where do we fit in this, and how can we jump on board and help to build the momentum?
Sure. So I think one of the ways that we have really been working to really ensure that we are not only focused on the city of Erie and specifically the core, but that we are recognizing Erie County as a whole. So we have been having conversations to start with a smaller, what we're calling sort of rural revitalization team, which includes communities such as Corey, Albion, Edinburgh, and Union City as well. So we are at any time happy to have a conversation with you, have an understanding of what your community needs are, and how we can sort of plug in some of our resources to assist you in your efforts moving forward. So really it's just, happy to connect with you and just have that initial conversation and see where it leads.
There's no more questions. Let's give Kim another round of applause and thank you
Thank
for
you
her
all
time.
for being here too.